Hello everyone, welcome to the Money Club series. My name is Azmi. I am your host and I'm joined by my trusted co-host, Sam Eljerban.
How you doing, Zah?
I'm good.
How's your week been?
Mate, my week has been
You cancelled
amazing.
on me, so you must have been busy.
We're doing so much. We're doing so much growth at the moment, right? So our days and nights are full. We're meeting people. We're hiring people. We're firing people. It's all happening. It's all happening here in the Money Club office.
Yeah, 100%.
So Sam, your week?
Oh, very busy as well. I actually had to take a bit of downtime. I was that busy, so went and had a picnic not too far from here, La Perouse, right? It's going to tie into the topic we're talking about, so it has relevance to this topic, right? So Thursday was supposed to be quite a strange day. I don't know if you saw the weather, or you would have seen the weather, right?
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, then it changed.
It changed.
You would have copped
really
the weather
quickly.
change here, right?
Yeah.
So we went and had a picnic, La Perouse, knowing the weather's going to change, but we said, it's what we want to do. Let's just go and do it. So we went and did it. Halfway through the picnic, got hammered. Absolutely hammered, right? It was still enjoyable. We had to run.
With rain? Hammered with rain?
Rain and wind, right?
Okay.
So in a segue into what we're going to talk about is we try to not let the risk of something bad happening affect what we wanted to do. So we said, F it, we'll go and enjoy our day. We have the time off. We scheduled it. Let's go and do it, see what happens. So what are we talking about today?
Well, you failed, Sam. You failed on your picnic date, right?
We didn't fail.
But it was out of your control.
Successful to an extent, and then it failed.
But it was out of your control, and what did you learn from that?
What did we learn from that? Well, if you don't take a risk or anything like that, you're never going to get anywhere initially, right? So you actually have to take the first step to do something. And I guess in that situation is we knew there was a risk, but it's what we wanted to do, so we pushed through.
So no risk, no reward.
That's it.
No risk, no reward. No responsibility, no reward, right? So we call it the 3 R's.
Oh.
Yeah, no risk, no responsibility, no reward, right? So you got to go out there and take that risk. So I guess what we're talking about today on our podcast is something that not many people talk about, right? It's failure.
Yep.
Now, where there's risk, there's potential failure. And we hear so many, cliche sayings. There's YouTube videos out there. There's Instagram memes.
Plenty.
Everyone's talking like failure is the stepping stone to success. Failure is the secret ingredient to success. There's
Success
so many more.
only comes from failure.
Yeah, all of those. You only fail when you quit. All of those things, right? And at the end of the day, you sort of get sick of reading them. You sort of get sick of hearing people talk about them. In actual fact, you and I have experienced financial failure, business failure, relationship failure, all of that sort of thing. And I feel that we need to talk about it more because those failures actually have these secret lessons hidden behind them that push you forward to where you want to go. And when I was younger, I used to think to myself, okay, when I used to fail, the whole world was caving in. You hit a little bit of adversity and you just think, okay, I'm so hard done by. Why does this happen to me? You fall into sort of the victim mentality.
Negative mindset.
Things go down. And like you and I, we've had our fair share of failures, financially, through business. And we want to share that with our listeners, right? Because we feel that our listeners can really take advantage of the mistakes that we've made by not potentially making it themselves, but understanding that failure truly is the secret ingredient to success.
Yeah, everyone's going to experience it in their journey, right? So I think, everyone likes to talk about successes, but really where you learn stuff is where you get in deep about your failures and where you went wrong, so you don't make the same mistake that guy did, right? So it speeds up your progress, I think.
I think people are really, really sort of like worried about what people think about them.
Yep.
And I know I'm not going to lie, I used to really worry about what people used to think.
It's always going to be there as well.
It's always going to be there. You're worried about what family thinks. You worry about your close, circle of friends think. And it starts all from school, right? Like if you fail an exam, or if you don't make the basketball team or whatever it is, and you're made to feel like an idiot, right? You're not made to feel like, okay, well, you've got to work on certain areas of your life. let's look to improve. Michael Jordan got knocked back from his high school team. Some famous people, Bill Gates, Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, he was a big one. Colonel Sanders, imagine a life without KFC, right? He was 65 before
before he hit it big, right?
Before he hit it big. So, he had to fail over and over and over again. Thomas Edison, 1,000 times or something it was until he became successful. So it's happened to all of the greats, but why do we still shun on it? Why do we still make fun of people who fail? Why do we still feel like we have this fear of failure? And I feel like it really holds people back because they're so scared to make that move.
Just like finance, and we'll talk in previous episodes, how finance and money, the knowledge of money is sort of like taboo. No one wants to deal with it. I think you find that as well with failure. No one wants to really talk about it. They just want to talk about the success and not delve into the failures, right? It's sort of people just don't want to deal with the failures.
It's funny that you say that, Sam, because in my culture back in Asia, right, you don't talk about your failures.
Yeah,
you don't talk about how you potentially broke up with your girlfriend or divorced from your wife.
You hide it.
It gets pushed under, swept under the carpet, right? If you did a bad business deal, you don't talk about it. If you failed your exams or you didn't get through uni or whatever it is, right? You're not supposed to talk about it. You're only supposed to talk about the good things, which means that you're living life of a facade.
It's like a lie. It's a lie. You're lying about all the crap you went through.
Exactly.
And just putting an image of success, which is false.
And I think people they need to hear about failure a lot more because they can resonate with it. Because everybody fails. Everybody goes through it. We live in a social media strong society now where everyone just displays their highlight reel, right?
That's right, yeah.
And it's just... It's not the truth, right? Every single successful person has gone through some sort of failure, right? I've bought properties that are lemons, right? And I actually still hold those properties. I've got to get rid of them. I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've lost a lot of money in big deals, right? But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be as good as I am now. And, it really does propel you to the next stage of your life.
So you sort of need the balls to act, whether you're going to fail or not, to keep going forward, right?
Be prepared to lose. Just be prepared to lose. My dad, hardest guy that I know, he used to tell us when we were kids, if we were ever going into a street fight, we've been in many street fights in our time because, it was just part of growing up. And my dad would always say to me, he'd go, Zah, if you're going to go into a fight, be prepared to die. And it was very extreme. My mum never really liked it, but he would say, be prepared to die. Because if you're prepared to die, you're prepared to lose.
Yeah.
And if you're prepared to lose, then, man, you're all in, right? And I take that mentality over into business, right? Be prepared to lose. Because if you're prepared to lose, then all of a sudden, you're aggressive. You're going to take the biggest risk. And what's the worst that's going to happen, right? You lose a little bit of money, you get a bit embarrassed. Who cares? Get back up again and keep moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. It's a good mindset. I think anyone that's going to be trying to get ahead in their life is going to have to employ something like that. Like you always say, put yourself in a corner and come out, swinging and all that kind of stuff and fight. So don't be afraid of failing. You're going to have to go through it one time or another. Hopefully there's lesser times of failures, but you have to go through it.
Man, it was like when I started boxing, right? But when I was a kid, I was so afraid of getting punched in the face.
I think we sparred a long time ago. Did we spar
yeah, we used to spar when we were kids, right? We were kids. Anyway, when you first start doing that, you get really scared of getting punched in the face. But then you get hit a few times and man, you might get knocked out, right? Whatever. But then all of a sudden it becomes the norm.
You expect it.
And you become immune to it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the same in business. It's the same in finances. You lose a little bit of money, you do a bad deal, a business partner rips you off, it becomes easier. You become tougher. That scar tissue builds up and you're able to deal with things bigger and better as time goes on.
So it's sort of necessary to get in the ring and fight to get that sort of
100%.
To get that knowledge behind you to keep going forward.
100%, because we want to compare these analogies to business, right? Because it's all the same. Think about it. Let's use another analogy of going to the gym. We always have been taught when we do resistance training to go to failure, right? Yeah. When you're doing resistance training, if your 9th or 10th rep or whatever it is your failure rate, then all of a sudden muscle's going to grow. That's the same as your brain. That's the same as your business skills, your finance skills. When you go to failure on the brink, that's the breaking point. That's where you get to the next stage. That's where you upgrade, right? Yeah. That's where you get bigger and better.
So you have to apply that to other parts of your life, right? So that's it.
So we're talking about business and money, right? So the ABS says that more than 60% of small businesses stop their operation within the first 3 years of their startup journey. I actually think this is a good thing. I think that percentage needs to go through even higher.
It probably is higher now during COVID, right? So.
Of course, it probably is. But I think it's a good thing, right? As much as we think, the recession is bad and it's putting a lot of people out of work, I think it's a great correction. It's a wake up call to a lot of people. There were a lot of businesses that couldn't afford to keep going, right? And now this has taught them to adapt.
Is it like a great equalizer, would you say, sort of thing? It's bringing you back in if you weren't performing, sort of thing.
Well, you can get lazy, you can get complacent, and you forget what it feels like to hurt. You need a little bit of pain. And, I think a lot of people need to go through it a lot more, because we all know those arrogant people who have always got to win in life, and they become cocky. They never want to learn anymore. They're no longer a student. They think they know everything, and then at the end of the day, something needs to happen to bring them down to earth. Some sort of failure, some sort of resistance, so that they are taught that they're not invincible, right? It's just, I guess it's the same as the boxer, right? If the boxer just keeps winning, Conor McGregor says it, a win can make or break a fighter, because they can get lazy. The underdog is the one who goes back to the gym the next day and wants to get better.
Drive, it's pushing him forward, like you were talking about before.
So losing is really winning at the end of the day. If you think about it long term, like, you're actually teaching yourself to become better at what you do. So Sam, we want to talk about, I guess, some of our personal failures. I think our listeners would really appreciate that. We're going to really try and open up as much as we can. I'm going to try and leave a lot of names and identities out, just to protect those people. Not that they need protecting, but we just don't want to get sued.
We'll talk about it in a general sense.
And we don't want to get shot, right? So what we want to talk about, you, Sam, is sort of your first big money mistake. Like, what was your first big money mistake? Because you're the money guy, right? We want to know, what has happened to the money guy?
The money guy, okay. Probably my biggest mistake ever. It sort of wasn't an actual action I took, it was an inaction, right? So my biggest mistake, a failure of mine, was to not take action. So in a financial context, I think we touched about it earlier in another podcast, but I'll go through it again. It was a potential investment in a property that I was prepared to acquire at the time. I was quite young. I think I was about 22 years old, 21, about 10 years ago, in McMahon's Point, right? So this property would have been my first property at the time to purchase, so there's a lot of nerves around that big decision. Everything was in place, and I had a network that was supportive of that decision. But when it came down to it, I lacked the actual fortitude and the positive mindset to actually follow through, right? And projecting that purchase to today's date, that property is probably worth about $600,000. And just purely based on my fear of it not working out and failing for whatever reason, the economy goes bad, I can't afford to fund it, whatever that situation would have been, I didn't action that purchase. And that's really, it annoys me to this date, because really, if I did that first purchase, I'd be far more ahead in my journey in acquiring certain assets. So really, that would be, from a financial point of view, that's probably my biggest mistake, is not acting. So not doing an actual action that failed, but not acting allowed me to fail in that respect.
So execution, right, is really the key takeaway here, right? What did you do in terms of, you took a lesson away from it? What did you go and do after that?
After that, so you had to recoup and try and understand why. So it's a mindset thing. So even though I'm dealing with, and at that time I was still dealing with numbers and property and clients in that field, when it came to applying it to my own life, I shit myself, right, to actually do it back then. So what I did is learn from that and see, okay, the property purchase, if I actually followed through, look where I'd be now. So instead of fearing what could have gone wrong, I should have just said, okay, what if it actually goes right? So I had to flip my mentality about my next purchase, which actually you helped me with, and say, instead of thinking about all the negatives around the situation, what if it actually goes right and according to plan, how much better off I'm going to be down the track? So I think with my situation in that regard was a complete mindset shift. I come from a background of accounting, as you all know, where we're quite conservative and risk averse. So doing something like that, investing in a property, even though we deal with clients and help them do that kind of thing, actioning it on yourself is always hard. And I'm sure a lot of listeners out there that listen to your Luxland podcast and the Money Club might be in a position to try and acquire something or do something with their life, start a business, whatever it is they want to do, but they doubt themselves. And that's one big thing that you sort of have to eliminate from your life in order to grow. Otherwise, you're always going to be restrained.
So what I'm gathering here, right, is when you ended up taking action,
Yes.
you ended up getting in touch with myself,
Yes.
which actually backed your decision to help you execute, right? Would you say that, you know, having the right people around you to give you that confidence that you're making the right decision is important? Because
100%.
when you were looking at that McMahon's Point property, you had no one. You were just on your own.
Didn't really have anyone. So really you need people in your network that are going to be supportive and encourage, right? So, and really you want people in your network that have done what you want to do. I know it's probably a cliche thing, but don't take advice from someone who hasn't done what you're trying to do. They'll probably be trying to bring you down. They might be jealous or whatever. Like, have an opinion that they don't want to help you get to that stage, right? So really you need people in your corner like yourself that have done it before, see the value in you doing it and helping you try and achieve that goal. So 100% you need people in your network that are going to help you.
That have done it before.
Done it before, the experience, right?
So don't take health advice of the fat personal trainer.
That's right.
You want to take advice of someone who's actually done it before. That's a big takeaway.
100%.
Okay, moving on to your next mistake. I know that you made a mistake in your super.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I made a few mistakes in super.
Yeah. Well, let's just stick to one of your main ones, just so that people can take it away and go, look, I'm not going to make that same mistake.
Yeah. Okay. So mine was really it was a two-pronged mistake. It touches on inaction as well, but also asset class. So we're not talking about financial advice here, so it's just generic talking. But I was monitoring silver bullion as an investment. I set up a super fund to try and take advantage of my super and invest in silver. Now, by not acting at the time, and I delayed my decision, silver prices went through the roof, which I could have capitalized on. I didn't, again, out of fear. I was like, what if they plummet? But they didn't. They made a fortune, and I missed out again. Another thing is the asset class isn't really conducive to my goal. So silver is quite a risk-averse investment. If anyone has that in their portfolio, it's more to safeguard against bad things happening, not really to grow, right? So being a younger guy, you're not sort of looking at risk-averse assets, you're looking for growth assets. So it was a bad decision in terms of the asset class and the other inaction I took, which really, it actually devastated my super, but I have recouped it since. So maybe if you're looking to grow, don't look at metals. Look at property and other things you can leverage on to grow your asset base, right?
Okay. So, but it's good you went through that, Sam. We've always got to remain positive about this, right?
Because whenever someone comes to talk to you now about, oh, should I do that? If I've done it, I can say, I tried that.
Yep.
Maybe just know what I went through, just so you can help you with your decision. Maybe don't do it, or maybe limit your investment in that and do other things. So I like it because I like sharing, but I like sharing my knowledge where I can and trying to help people not stuff up where I stuffed up.
And that's the value, Sam. That's the value.
And I'd rather talk about my problems and the things I effed up.
Yes,
right?
because you don't want other people to make that same mistake. It's the same with me with property, right? I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I have in property. So, you know, it's a pleasure for me to
And you're
share
open
that
about
knowledge.
talking about the biggest F up you've ever done, you just go, yep.
100%. And this is why we call failure is an asset. The more you fail, the more higher of value you are. And that's what people don't understand. People keep promoting the successes, but it's Jack Ma says it, the famous Chinese billionaire.
Alibaba, huh?
Yeah, who owns Alibaba. He says, you know, learn from those who have made the most mistakes. So I guess on super,
Yep.
right? Now with COVID, you can pull out, I don't know, 10, 20 grand in super. What are your thoughts on that? Just while we're on super.
I wouldn't recommend it, so it's not advice to you. I don't know your situation, but whoever's listening, super has a lot of tax benefits, and having an amount in super today has a future value of wealth that's compounded a lot. So taking any money out from super now is going to be detrimental to your super balance when you retire. So if you can avoid it with all the stimulus out there, don't touch your super. If you can't, okay, take it, but don't waste it. So I've seen a lot of reports from other media outlets and stuff, and they've done assessments on how that money's been spent, and people are spending it very irresponsibly, put it that way. They're spending it on alcohol. They're having a party with the money, right? When they're not realizing this money, that 10, 20 grand, could be worth 100 to 150 grand, depending on the growth, once they retire. So they're really taking away 150 grand's worth of
Future
super
income,
balance to have a decent time now. They're not willing to go through a hard time at the moment and push through and maintain that balance. They want to take it out. That's not applying to everyone, but I have seen some bad stories about it.
So sometimes I think maybe these people just need to do it, fail, fall flat on their face so they know.
Maybe it's a good lesson for them. Yeah,
They need to go through
they
it.
failed. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get personal. Relationships. We've all been there where, you know, two people haven't been on the same page,
Oh, yep.
financially speaking, and it has affected us,
Oh,
right? It has affected our growth. It has affected our, you know, us hitting our targets and our goals. And ultimately, you know, it can be the breakdown of relationships. Sam, I know you've been through one. Tell us how important it is to be on the same page with your partner when it comes to finances.
Yeah, it's really crucial to be in the same mindset or have the same goals. If you don't have the same goals from a financial point of view, you know, you can be lovey-dovey, everything is cool, but really when it comes down to it, if you're not trying to strive towards something in common, whatever that is, and we'll just take financial goals for example, you're not going to get there, right? So we took an example in a previous podcast about two people rowing a boat. If you're trying to get the other side, one guy's, you know, trying to get that side, you're just going to be doing spinning. You're going to be spinning, right? You're going to
Going in circles.
You're going to flounder. You're not going to get to where you want to go. So both people have to be rowing in the same direction to try and achieve your goal. To make it a bit nerdier, right? To make it a bit nerdy, accounting nerd. Do you remember how we were talking about people being in themselves a business, right? So you have your income and expenses. The bank will look at you, at your assets and liabilities, blah, blah, blah. So if each person is a business, really when you come together as a couple, what are you? You're a partnership, right? And
Joint venture,
right? So JVP. So really when that happens, if you look at it from an accounting point of view, you're a partnership. And what happens in partnerships, you've been in a few, I'm sure, right, over time?
Well, we're going to get into that.
Oh, that's right. So,
that's part of my failures. I've had plenty of failed partnerships. But go on.
So you'd know that when you're in a partnership, there's a term called joint and severally liable, meaning whatever the partner does, whatever they stuff up in their financial situation is going to reflect badly on you.
So you take on their liability.
100%. So if we look at people, I know we're boiling relationships down to a financial situation, which, you know, we're just doing so for a topic of conversation, right? There's many other aspects to relationships, but finance is a key part of that relationship. Having the same goal and direction is very crucial. And if you look at it from a business point of view, when you are in fact actually a business yourself, when you come together, you are a partnership, whatever that person's doing is going to affect you. So it's a critical factor. Not the first thing you look at when you meet someone nice, you know, and have dinner, but you really should gauge how they are with money, because if you have certain things you want to achieve and they're not on the same page, it's going to hinder you. You know, it's not the be all and end all, but if they can't change and adapt to what you want to do, you might have some issues moving forward.
And you're saying this from first-hand experience, Sam, right? So I think, you know, we all say, okay, it's not the most important thing, you know, it's not to the point where we're looking at their balance sheet on our first date and all of that sort of thing. But what makes it really important is that we all know that money can be one of the main causes of marriage breakdowns,
I think it's a
relationship.
fact, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a fact, right? Fact. So, like, if you can get your money right and you can be on the same page, and like I know when I was growing up, you know, living in a middle class sort of area, a lot of my friends who had parents who broke up, that was all because of, either alcohol or gambling, because they would, the money would be gone.
So the money's gone.
Now, if there was an abundance of cash, there may be other problems, but that's where it stems from. So I think you need to be on the same page when you're dealing with finances in a partnership, in a marriage. I know my marriage is, the financial literacy between us is tight.
It's on point.
We know what targets we've got to hit. We're very, very sort of, aligned. And I think it's really important. A household needs to be aligned. Like, you can't have one person who's a liability and then the other person an asset. You're just going to cancel each other out. Yeah. And, you're going to end up having the shits with each other. Yeah. Right? It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And I think it comes back again to people not wanting to talk about money. Right? So people don't want to talk about money in general. So when you're with a partner, that's probably even more so. And you won't deal with the finances and stuff. It's off topic sort of thing. And that's sort of what I experienced personally. We never discussed our personal finances. We sort of knew what each other made, which was okay. Our lifestyle was beyond our means, so we're spending a lot more than we should have. I was willing to rein that in and adjust how we were doing things, because I saw my savings deplete over time, right? So I made a conscious effort to try and tidy our affairs up, but the other party wasn't willing to. Led to a lot of frustration. People aren't going in the same direction, and you become bitter, right? So
and you broke up.
Broke up, yeah. Among other reasons, but this was one of the items. I was like, I can't ignore that. It's gonna be a thorn in my side the rest of my life.
So for our listeners, the reason why we're talking about this is because it's a failure, right? Like, you're in it's almost like a JV partnership, right?
100%.
When you're looking to get married to someone, or you're engaged, or you're dating someone, whatever it is, you're in a JV partnership. And if you don't, if you're not on the same page early, then what's going to happen is you're going to fail. That partnership is going to fail, and you've had first-hand experience with that. So a lesson to take away from that would be, I feel, set the standard early, right? Put it all out on the table and say, look, these are my expectations. Where are you at? Let's get on the same page. Are we in a spot where we need to learn more, right? Let's learn together. Right? Set goals together, set targets together, and let's go and push forward. Then all of a sudden, you're on the same page, right? There's no like, okay, I'm keeping my money, you're keeping your money. No. You've entered into an agreement. It's a contract, right? Yeah. Push forward together, because that's gonna have a more of a success rate, not just with your finances, but with your relationship as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think it'd be harder for the younger guys and girls to do that, because when you're younger, you're not thinking about these things. I didn't think about that kind of stuff. But now when I'm approaching a relationship, I don't explicitly talk about that, but I try and gauge the person and see how they operate with money. Well, as part of getting to know them, so I can see.
It's easy to pick up on money habits, right? Like when you're well versed yourself on the basic principles of good money habits, it's actually easy to see what the other person is like, right? So it's not you're not sitting there judging them, but it's more so, okay, what do we want? Like, start at the end and go, okay, what are our goals? How are we going to get there? And reverse engineer it and go, okay, are we on the same page? Right? Because set the standard early, because if you're like 3-4 years into a relationship and, you feel like the other side has these bad money habits, then you got to nip that in the butt real early.
Yeah, 100%. It'll be the foundation of a good relationship if you can sort that stuff out early, I think. So, well, enough about me, man, probing into my affairs. Let's talk about you, man. So obviously you've been involved in a lot of different businesses throughout your time in entrepreneurship. We probably don't have enough time to talk about them all. I don't know, we probably talked about me too much here. But, okay, tell us about your first big financial failure. What was it? What was the scenario? And what did you learn from it?
My first biggest financial failure came from a nightclub investment. And I had been in the nightclub industry for almost a decade. Yep. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to be the cool guy and open up my own nightclub.
Thing, yeah.
And I went into business with another prominent nightclub figure, and it eventually failed because we couldn't get the liquor license across the line. We were trying to transfer a liquor license from another site to our nightclub. We worked with these, millionaire developers in building this special nightclub in Newcastle, and I lost about $500,000, and it was big because I had saved a lot of money to get to that point.
So were you all in, sort of to an extent? At that?
In terms of my entire net worth, no. And what saved me was I had 3 properties in the background, and I was really, really lucky that I had those properties to back me up, to save me essentially from bankruptcy. I was 25 years old, so it was a lot of money back then. And you know what? It humbled me. I thought that I was, all that. I knew everything. I was super arrogant. I was cocky. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to dump, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this project, and I'm going to be the coolest guy on earth and own this nightclub. And I fell flat on my face. And it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it kept me in check, brought me down to earth. And, basically God told me, he goes, mate, you're not that good. Right.
Oh, okay.
And, it was hard.
So it forced you to go back, look at yourself and try and develop more upon yourself?
Yeah, because I had a lot of success when I was younger working in the hospitality industry. And I just thought that, when you're in your 20s, you're actually quite, when you get success in your 20s fast and you've come from nothing, you think you're invincible because you haven't failed, you haven't made mistakes.
So everything you thought you'd touch might go to gold or something like that?
Exactly right. And it didn't. And, I lost a lot of money, lost a lot of credibility, and it was tough, but it was essential. And, I guess the key takeaway from that was to, study what you're doing a lot more before jumping in. Like, I just didn't know. Also, the people I was in business with, I didn't really know them well. But at the same time, I didn't know what I was looking for. I had to go through this process to deal with these different types of people. And they weren't necessarily bad people. It was just that I wasn't well versed in what I was doing. So I parted with my money, not really knowing about what I was putting my money into, and it collapsed.
Okay, but you had the balls to go ahead with that big decision, right? Where in my failure it was inaction. I didn't have the balls.
We're complete opposites.
Very different.
We're complete opposites.
We still failed, so.
Yeah, but that's our commonality, right?
That's true. Yeah, so we both learned something about that. So so after that, you moved into a totally different business model and industry, specializing in hormone replacement therapy, right? However, you got caught up in something that I think led to the business shutting down, right? There's a bit of controversy and things. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I was caught up in a drugs in sport scandal, and it was surrounded by the whole peptides. This was back in 2013, and I actually made really good money out of this business. I didn't lose any money. I actually walked away with a lot of money. But the problem was that the asset got shut down, cash flow got switched off, and also my name got dragged through the mud, through the media. And it was a very, very dark time for me. I was, I was tainted as this thug, organised criminal thug that, was part of this eastern suburbs syndicate. And the media just blew it out of proportion, brought up all of these associations and really just dragged my name through the mud. And it was a dark, dark time for me. And even though it wasn't a financial failure, it was a failure in business. And I felt that I went through that a good, 3 to 6 months of almost hitting depression, because when the media gets a hold of your name and really, really puts it out there as this bad person, then until it happens to you, you don't know how much that hurts.
It'd be hard to reverse, right?
It was really, really, really hard. And I had to push through that. And it wasn't much of we actually made a lot of money from that business. It was heartbreaking that we had to shut it down because it was, new legislation got brought in. But it was even more heartbreaking when you would see your name on the front page of the newspaper, tainted as a
fake stories,
right?
And
really,
you can't even defend yourself.
No,
right?
because
it's already out there.
And your reputation's everything, right? And I've got a good reputation in business. I'm a man of my word. I hold myself of high integrity. But that all got cancelled out just because the media felt like they wanted to sell newspapers. So that was a really, really big failure to me. And you know what? That was out of my control. I was in business with someone who was untrustworthy, who was doing the wrong thing, and by association, I paid the price.
So would you say your takeaway from that would be knowing the people you're in business with more and knowing about their maybe...
A lot of my partnership failures have been about the other person potentially robbing me, betraying me, stabbing me in the back, all of that sort of thing. And my take on all of this now is just do it, test people out, and then just roll with the punches, because you're never ever going to be able to control what the other person's going to be doing, right? And you can't judge everybody, the same. Everybody's going to be different, right? Everybody's motives are going to be different. Everybody's going to have different levels of integrity. And the only way you're going to know is if you jump in there, do the business with them, and then, keep moving forward. Drop them or keep moving forward with them, right? It's the only way. Like, it'd be great to say, all right, let's do an interview on everyone and just know that you're going to have a successful future with them. No, it's never going to happen. You have to go through it.
So that led you to like a bad state of mind, right? So that experience, how did you get out? How did you move on from that bad period? So
that led me into my next business, right? And we opened up a sports supplement retail store, not too far from where the anti-aging clinic was.
So you shifted the focus to something.
Yeah, and we wanted to show the community that we weren't criminals. We were, people who cared about the health and fitness of the community, and we wanted to help people. And it was a huge success. That business taught us a lot. It was a massive success. Unfortunately, some of the people I was in business with within that business went on to another path that wasn't really in line with my goals. And I had to go and try and recover that business. The people that we were sort of in association with got caught up in some pretty bad criminal activities. So we had to sort of shift that business into another brand. And I lost a lot of money through that business as well, because, the people that I was involved with were full of ego. They were all about, the image and, the money, and they weren't about the purpose or the vision. And eventually I sold the business and got out of it because I had to. I couldn't be a part of that type of culture.
Yeah, it sounds like, sounds like you had a lot of obstacles during those few health-centered businesses. Weren't you dealing with something else at the time, with another business simultaneously at the salon?
Yeah, so we had the salon. So we've had this hair salon for 8 years, right? And we bought it as an existing business, and we wanted to basically renegotiate the lease. Now, looking back on it, I probably should have been a little bit more professional with how I renegotiated the lease, but I left it too long, and I sort of disrespected a few people that were associated to that original location. And what happened, that these people, this guy's actually in jail now, so I don't care about talking about it, but he came through the business with a gun to basically threaten us.
The landlord?
It was someone associated to the business, right? And so what we went through this whole debacle of dealing with this stressful event, and that's scary. Like, as much, as tough as people sound they are, when someone's got a gun and they're in front of you, like
it's next level.
Yeah, you shit your pants, right? So to me, that was a failure, because I didn't deal with the whole situation as professionally as I should. I learnt a lot from that. It's all cool now. Like, we sorted that problem out. But, at the time, like, that's a pretty bad situation to be in.
Yeah.
And, I think that really toughened us up. Like, we really sort of went, oh, wow, we've dealt with a lot of different types of crooks in business. And you know what? Sometimes the crooks that we deal with business, they don't carry guns, right? We call them white-collar criminals. These people, like, they steal from you.
Sneaky, right?
These corporate criminals steal from you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I actually like the guy who walked into my salon with the gun more than the white-collar criminals, because those are the people that man, they're like snakes.
You know he's bad news. It's obvious. The white collar crime is hidden, right? It's sneaky. You don't know what's happening.
Look, the convicted drug dealers, the convicted violent criminals, the bank robbers, those guys are okay because you know they're bad, right? But these guys that put a front on that will steal your money right under your nose. And you know what? There's nothing anyone can do about it.
It sounds like even though you had tremendous success in business, there was a lot of problems, right, along the way. Each business you had issues that pop up that you have to deal with. What kept you going throughout, and what were you doing with your money that you're making throughout that journey?
So I always invested in property.
Yeah.
So every business that I was essentially failing in, right, losing money, getting guns pointed to my head, like every single time that happened, I was still pushing money into assets that were producing income, which is property. And, you know, I was building my portfolio on the side and it was backing me up. It was making me feel good, right? Actually, my properties bailed me out of some bad business decisions, like in terms of money. All I had to do was go back to the bank, refinance, use that equity to bail me out on some bad debt, business bad debt. So if it wasn't for my portfolio, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be able to tell these stories in front of the camera and say, look, embrace failure. I love it because I got myself out of it. I always backed myself up with my portfolio, and my portfolio still stays with me today. You know, it's my staple. It's my bread and butter.
It's like your rock.
It's the foundation.
Right? What you can do.
Because I can always turn to it. I've sold property before because I've needed to use that capital to put into a business venture. So I advise anyone and everyone, if you're going into business, build that portfolio up. Because what will happen is you will need to turn to it.
Call upon it.
You will have to.
So all of that investing led you to become quite knowledgeable in property, right? And then led to Luxland, development of Luxland, where you're then able to advise other people what to do, what not to do. You got a business partner now at Luxland. Can you tell us a little bit about that when you first onboarded that partner?
So Luxland started as a boutique development company back in 2014, and I had my best friend at the time was my business partner, and it was great. We did developments together. You know, we really struggled together. You know, like we would meet up every week, and we would go to property sites, and we would go spend our time on realestate.com, talking to real estate agents, and we did a fair few developments together. Made some good money, and what we ended up doing was we said, well, let's start a consultancy business, which is, you know, what we're doing here with Luxland, and let's advise clients on how to invest in property, right? And let's just carbon copy what I've done with my portfolio and go to market. And, you know, I had this business partner who I'd done developments with. We had some success with that, and he ended up sort of fizzling out and sort of taking my money, right? He would leave me with a tax bill. He would take my investment money and use it for his own, you know, leisure, lifestyle. And me being me, I trusted him with a lot of my capital, and I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars through this guy. And, you know, we're keeping his name closely held. Yeah, we're not exposing him because we don't want anyone to get murdered. But he is someone that I would call a classic white collar criminal, 100%. Right? He can go and rob someone, leave people with bills to pay and liabilities that he is actually liable for, and he will get away with it. And there's nothing we can do. And these are the types of people that you will come across in business. It's going to happen. You're gonna deal with dodgy real estate agents. You're gonna deal with lawyers who are gonna rip you off, who are just really masquerading as salespeople. You're gonna enter all of these bad relationships. And I guess the majority of my failures that we've talked about today have come from bad partnerships. Yeah. And I don't want to forget about, it's not all about them, right? This is not me saying, okay, these people have done bad by me, I'm the victim, because we're not here trying to chase any unpaid bills or anything like that. The lessons to be taken away from all of these failures that I've been through is that I don't feel like I provide enough value to the partnership for that other partner to be able to go, you know what? I'm not going to rip this guy off because he brings so much value to the table. Because a lot of these partnerships I had were, I was just providing capital, and these other partners were sort of just, working in the business or providing a skill set or whatever it is. And I've realized that you can't just be a capital provider. You need to have some sort of skill set, some sort of value that you're bringing to the table that money just can't buy, right? So that's what all of these failures taught me. It taught me to be better. I got into my personal development. I got into my self-education. It really hit me when I was 30 years old. I was like really confused, right? I went through all of these failures and I was like, what's wrong with me? So I really went on this self-discovery of education, personal development, and just really investing in myself. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on education. And now, right, the value that I bring to the table is tremendous. Like all of these bad partners that we're talking about, they are so scared of me because they can see how powerful I am now.
And they probably want to reconnect and work with you again?
Well, there are certain former partners there who I have reconnected with now, like there's no more bad blood. And, we are, on talking terms, and we are discussing other things together. So the key takeaways, I think, is really work on yourself. Because if you continue, because I never used to work on myself, I used to always just work on the business, right? When you can work on yourself, business grows, partnerships grow. People want to be in business with you because you've got this vision, right? I remember when, I had one of the businesses and I felt like, why was everyone turning against me, right? And people were leaving me, partnerships were failing. I was like, why don't people believe in what I'm trying to achieve? And what I realized was the vision was too small. It was really just to look after the bills, maybe look after a little bit for me, for him, for that person, and it just wasn't enough. It wasn't compelling enough to get people to go, yes, sir, we're going to go through this together. So one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is create a really big vision, expand, continuously think, how am I going to scale this thing? Because that's what gets people excited. When you start thinking big and you have this massive vision. And when you might hit that vision in 1, 2, 3 years, you're going to have to come up with something else because people get bored.
Yeah. From your stories and your different business ventures, what I can see is that your ideas were there. It's just the choice in partner seemed to let you down, right? So it wasn't even within your control to an extent. You ran the risk of going into partnership with people for business, but then through no fault of your own, some of them stumbled because of the partner, not necessarily your doing, right? So,
well, I like to look at it now that I've moved on, is that I like to look at myself, because a lot of people place blame on others. And I like to look at it as an apprenticeship. It's a 10-year apprenticeship in business. And what I did was, that's just all part of the apprenticeship. They were just milestones. They were like, what do you call it in uni? Units.
Units.
Units that you're completing. Those failures are the units that you're completing in your apprenticeship. And it's important to go through them because after every single failure, I had to go back and look in the mirror and go, what's wrong with me, right? And I questioned it. And there were times where I questioned it for 6, 12, 24 months, and I never knew what the answer was. And I'm like, man, there's got to be something wrong with me. There's got to be something wrong with me. And a lot of people would say, no, it's not you. Like people who support you, right? They'll go, it's not you, it's the other person. And the people around you that love you are going to say that, right? But really, it's something about you. You've got to change something about yourself. And I went and changed. I worked on myself every day. I became obsessed with it. Right? And people laugh at me doing this podcast, for example, but the reason why I do this podcast is because podcasts and YouTube videos actually helped me become who I am today.
You listening to them?
Yes.
And different people talking?
Yes. Okay. I mean, look at guys like Tony Robbins, for example. I always turn to Tony Robbins when in times of need. Times where I'm uncertain, times where I'm trying to find myself, right? So because he did that for me and several other, I call them mentors, I want to produce that for others. And that's why we do this podcast, because there's people out there that need it, right? And they need to hear that it's okay to fail. Like actually go and do it, fail forward. Like it teaches you to become better.
That's why we talk about it, right? So people can see not everyone's perfect, even though you could portray an image of success behind that is a lot of failure, right? So it's good. It's good knowledge for people to get out there and try, do things, fail, but keep moving forward. I think it's a very important message.
And I think learning from the failures, right? Like you really need to learn, like what I just said with looking in the mirror and going, okay, what can I do differently? What can I learn from dealing with this person? What can I learn from being ripped off? What can I learn from having no money? Like when you have no money, all of a sudden you become super creative, right? When you're hungry, you figure it out, right? And that's the point you want to get to. That's why we always say, if you've got 100, 200 grand in your account, exhaust those funds. Because once you exhaust those funds, you become creative.
Go make more money.
Because when you're hungry, right? That's where you really want to solve problems, right? So when you fail, right, you've got to put yourself in a position of failure and go, I've got to get better. I've got to work on myself.
Failures are a blessing in disguise. No one really wants to go through them, but you need to do them to go ahead, to go forward. That's my takeaway.
Tackle it head on.
That's it, 100%.
All right, well, that wraps us up for another podcast for the Money Club.
Amazing.
So go out there, guys, lose some money, so you can...
then call us and work out how to make it back.
Yeah, and learn from your failures. Until next time, we'll see you later.
See you guys.